Okay, so before you watch any further, pause the video real quick and check for updates on Windows because you should have an update pushed out to fix an issue, a major issue involving IPv6 right now. You may not know what any of this technical jargon means, but that's why I'm going to be explaining it today and why I'm going to be explaining why this, even though this is a massive vulnerability, and I'll explain, I'll talk about why, it really actually isn't that big of a deal because honestly, all you have to do is update, and if you update, you're fine. For the first bit of this being pushed out, of this being released, yeah, it's a major deal. However, this was not found being exploited in the wild. Microsoft had caught this themselves and pushed out the update. And when the update was pushed out, that's when they disclosed the vulnerability. So as long as you've updated, you should be fine. It's not like you could have been hacked before the update was pushed out, so that's good. Now let's talk about this because a lot of people don't really understand this stuff, and I get that. My whole channel is about simplifying this kind of stuff for people who don't really understand it because security information is important for everybody, even people who don't really understand all the technical stuff like reading Windows TCP over IP remote code execution vulnerability CVE blah, 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 like this seems like some scary hackerman shit. All right, I get it. So this score right here, 9.8 out of slash 8.5. This means that it's a big deal. This means that it's a major exploit. Max severity critical because it's a remote code execution vulnerability. So think about it like this. I'm going to boot up a just example desktop to show you what I'm talking about here. Let's say you're out and about, just casually using your computer. It's a normal day, not a big deal, right? Nothing going on, nothing too crazy. Now imagine if you get hacked all of this sudden. Just for no fucking reason, you just see some fucking command prompt windows open up or some shit, and then it closes or something, and you're hacked, right? You're like, what the fuck? What just happened? You don't have to do anything for this exploit to work. It just happens. Because all I have to do is send a network packet to your computer and you're hacked. You don't have to click anything. You don't have to do anything. Default setting Windows. It's not like you have to change anything to make it happen. It just happens. And you can get hacked just like that. And they can run code on your computer. Very terrifying, right? Very scary. Typically, malware works in a sense where it's some sort of malicious file that you would download from a website. And let's say you had a malicious file, right? Like I'm going to go ahead and just make a example executable file here for the sake of my explanation, just so that people understand. Let's say you downloaded a malicious file, okay? You're not hacked. You're not hacked just by downloading a malicious file. You have to run it to actually make it malicious, because otherwise it's just another file sitting on your desktop, right? Not a big deal. Now, if you actually were to run it, that's when the code executes, and then that's when it normally happens. And normally, user input is what causes code to execute, right? So, it's especially bad when the user doesn't have to do anything, and that's just what happens, right? So, every operating system runs off a kernel. So the best way I can explain this is the old days of computers, back when it was just a black background and white text on top. This command prompt, this is kind of what a kernel did, just for basic example. Of course, I'm not being super technical here. The foundation of a computer is just this. It's just running processes. It's just running code. It's just running commands like this, like in a sort of shell like this, right? But then UIs and everything are built off it, and that's what you actually see. Now, your system, of course, is built off the kernel. Now, for networking, you have to build networking into the kernel, right? Because the kernel is what makes up the core parts of the operating system. So you would have to implement the networking, right? Because every system, every operating system is going to work differently. So let's say Linux, for example. Linux is going to have a different implementation of IP stuff, of networking stuff than Microsoft, because Microsoft made the implementation for theirs and Linux did for theirs. And that's how the system interprets and handles networking, and that's how it works, right? It's not like there's a single implementation for it. It's the same protocols, but it's the way your computer handles that stuff is up to the operating system to decide. It's not some single thing that all of them use. Now, the way Microsoft implemented their functionality for IPv6 was there was a flaw in it in the kernel, and that's what leads to this issue. So turns out that turning off IPv6 on your computers doesn't actually fix the issue either. And I have IPv6 off actually myself for other reasons, long story. But turns out that even if you have it off, it still will hack you. And the reason why is because whenever you receive the IPv6 packets, because you can still receive IPv6 packets even if you have it off, right? So long story short, I'm just going to make it quick here. I can send you anything I want to your computer, but if your computer can't interpret it or doesn't understand or whatever, so it's just going to toss it out, right? But when it receives that stuff, it's going to look at it and it's going to go, oh, this is junk, and throw it away. Now, this is essentially what happens. It looks at the IPv6 packets, and just because it looks at the IPv6 packets is when the exploit happens. So even if you have IPv6 turned off, Windows Defender Firewall is going to try, before it can even interpret those packets and deny them, it's going to get the code to run, right? Because that's where the flaw is at. Now, obviously, after you've heard my detailed explanation, you can understand why this would be such a big problem, right? It's not actually that big of a problem because, like I said, thankfully, no signs of it being exploited anywhere have been found, and Microsoft actually picked up on this themselves. So thankfully, the update's been out the moment it was disclosed, and the method for how to do this hack, how to perform this exploit, hasn't even been really discovered yet, from what I understand. I mean, there's theories, probably pretty accurate theories, but I haven't seen any like genuine working like proof of concept malicious script for this yet floating around anywhere. There probably is, and there probably will be very soon. All I'm saying is that by the time this exploit were to become very popular and spread everywhere, the system's already going to be updated, so it's not a big deal as far as that goes. Thankfully, a major vulnerability that won't lead to a massive hack. If you guys remember the log4j thing, that was huge. But thankfully, this time it's not going to be anything like that, so you're safe. I see a lot of YouTubers. I just finished watching this video by Mental Outlaw, great channel, by the way. But I just watched this video, and I watched a couple other videos like it that use catchy titles like critical IPv6 bug found in Windows, and some of them make it just sound so terrifying, like this is extremely crazy. I need to click and watch this video now. What happened? Am I hacked? Right? Like, I feel like that's what's running through the people's heads whenever they read shit like this. It feels pretty fear-mongerish. But to be fair, I mean, I understand the grind, okay? I get it. And when it comes to YouTube, there needs to be a level of clickbait in each title, whatever. You need to have a catchy title, right? For example, this is a perfect example, actually, is this video. They gave me a server, so I destroyed it. And in this thumbnail right here, you can see, oh, wow, the server's fucking collapsing in the thumbnail. Holy shit, right? Well, in the video, yes, that screenshot actually happened, and it actually did struggle in this part of the video. But in the video, I do explain that these servers are actually good, and they actually perform really well, and they actually handle themselves really well with good performance, very solid performance, didn't crash once. Not trying to be an advertiser here, but there's a level, because what I showed in the thumbnail actually did happen in the video right here. However, the thumbnail makes you think that I made the server collapse and shit bricks, and I kind of did, but I didn't crash it, and it didn't like explode or anything. It wasn't like extremely bad. Whenever I stopped doing this test, it went right back to being fine. So there's a level of clickbait, and I understand it, and I respect the grind, and I'm not trying to call out any shit to Mental Outlaw or any of these other channels. Well, actually, some of these other channels, some of those titles were getting a little absurd. Even the content in the video, they were like, "Oh my god, guys, crazy exploit." But anyways, mental outlaw specifically, though, I'm not trying to throw shade, but it's just there's not a big deal around this, so I really don't want people to worry. I really want to set my channel as really want to set my channel's focus as demystifying a lot of cybersecurity stuff while also educating people and on cybersecurity stuff in a way that isn't like complex, because I mean, I've seen my channel stats and I've seen my channel viewers and stuff. A lot of them are older folk who may not understand this stuff too well. Hey, some of you guys who are younger, maybe 16, 18, whatever, some of you guys may not even understand this stuff, but hey, the whole point's about educational value. And I mean, how can you learn if you don't understand what the fuck I'm saying, right? And if you guys can learn a thing or two about keeping yourself safe online, that'd be great, because security is not difficult. But I'm going on a tangent now. This video is long enough. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that this isn't a big situation. Nothing to worry about. Just update your system and you're all good. Make sure if you're running any kind of personal server or something, you may have updates off. I know I sure do. You can see here that I have a NAS actually. And that thing doesn't have auto updates. I have to manually push updates. So when I saw this going down, I made sure to update. Make sure you do too. You shouldn't have any issue with this vulnerability. You should stay up to date on security shit going on like this. If you really can't or don't want to, just because this shit, you're reading like fucking barcode numbers, you're like, what the fuck's going on here? I understand. Just keep your system up to date then. Worry about just keeping your software and system up to date and you're good. That's about it. See ya.